Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again for the 8th lecture, and from this lecture we will be just concentrating on the our core objective of the course, that the public administration in Pakistan. As usual, I would like to give you a smart summary of the previous lecture. What was this? We studied the approaches to of the public administration, that how to study this public administration. There were many approaches and we studied one by one. To some approaches we allocated more time as compared to the other one. The first was the behavioral approach, just a positive approach, just to see that what is being done, no suggestion to improve the situation. The other was the system approach, very comprehensive approach, as its name suggests. It was about that the system is a complete and whole and complex system, and different organs are working within its this system, and they are not independent from each other. One element is related to other, one affects the other and being influenced by the other. And if we bring one organ or one part out of the system, it will not convey the true meaning. After this approach, there was the other approach, that was the ecology or the structural function approach. This was similar to that of this system approach, only the difference was from in the first approach we were traveling from A to B, that we were showing that there are different organisms, they form the whole society, whole system. In the structural function approach, we were saying that there is the whole society, it works like the organism. There was not much of the different. After this, if you remember, we talked about the ecological approach. This was more important, more related with the economics, but economics is always there because it has a critical role. And what was the conclusion of this ecological approach? Simple conclusion, that the public administration is embedded into other discipline. It is not independent of the other discipline like economics, sociology and many other disciplines. After this, there was the public choice theory to study the public administration. It just concentrates on the issue that the public administration have their own interest, and whenever they are going to apply any of the administration setup or the administration regulation, they ensure their interests are not disturbed. The most important and the last one was the contingental approach, or the other name, it's the situational approach, very relevant and more dominated nowadays, started in 1950s and 60s and going in the improvement over time. So what it says, that according to the situation, the public administration change. It is not a one size fits all. Every time when the situation changes, situation now means not only the time, but it is also the geographical region, the culture, the society, the moral values, whatsoever. The public administration should be in a different way. For example, if the wine is prohibited in Pakistan, there should be rules and regulation. And when you are in Europe, you should have to change the policy of the public administration. So now let's start our today, that is the 8th lecture. We will be talking about the devolution in Pakistan. How over the years Pakistan has seen the devolution programs, devolution of power over time, that how the authority was given to the grassroots level. And what we will be talking about, we will see what was the context of this, what were the scenario of this, what was the content, what this regulation, what this system was, and what were the causes of its failures, and why it could not perform up to the required level. It is better to give you, this is our country Pakistan. As we are talking about Pakistan, I would like to remind you rather, just a few things about the Pakistan, so that we could go in the light of this. These are some of the few facts about Pakistan. What is this? Founded by great Qaid Muhammad Ali Jinnah in 1947. Pakistan emerged as independent sovereign state. When I use word independent, my heart breaks because on paper we are independent state, but when we have to function, we are under the sovereignty of all the superpowers. So whatsoever, this is a separate discussion. However, we appeared on the world map in 1947 on the day of 14th of August. The capital is Islamabad. Fortunately, I am recording lecture in this capital city. Very beautiful city, very cool and calm cities. The cities of grades, it is also called, because many people from outside the country, from outside these cities, are the resident of now these countries. They are the public administrator, they are the businessmen, and many other things. The total area of Pakistan is 7,96,095 square kilometers. There is the possibility in some books you may see 90, rather than 95 you may see 96. Population is 190 million. This is just my guess. According to the previous population census, we were 180 millions, 18 crore. But over time, looking at the you may assume, looking at the growth rate of the population, I am just that we are very near to 200 million people, a large number of people on a very small planet, a small area. 7,96,095 square kilometers. Although it is a very large area, but still our population is increasing very rapidly, and it should be checked. Languages, Urdu is our national language, and our official language is the English. That's why I think the Urdu and the English, there is the controversy, and there is the suggestion, the high debate, that whether the Urdu should be the language of the office. Divided into 4 provinces, although we have created a 5th province, that is the Gilgit-Baltistan, but it has not the similar status as the other 4 provinces. It has some different status. We will discuss if we find time at a proper stage. What are these? The province, the Sindh, Punjab, Northwest Frontier Post. Now this is not, I deliberately not change this. This is now KPK, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Its previous name was that it is Northwest NWFP, and the Balochistan. If we look, if we want to rank these provinces by population, Punjab stands at the top, followed by Sindh, and then the KPK, and at the last the Balochistan. And if we go arrange the system by area, the Balochistan becomes at the top, followed by Punjab, then the Sindh, and the Balochistan. At the end, that is the Balochistan, the least populated area of Pakistan. Very small number of people, relatively, I am speaking in relative terms. If I talk about the governments in Pakistan, there is a parliamentary democratic system. There are 2 houses, the Senate and the National Assembly. President is the constitutional head of the states. Prime Minister has all the powers, and he is supposed to run the system, run the country, and he has the powers. And you can say he is the chief executive. And over time we will see there are 3 more pillars: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Media is also considered the part of the state. We will keep on discussing the system of the judiciary, the election of the judges, how the executive works, how the Parliament works over time, but today we will start our discussion, the devolution in Pakistan. It is very interesting. I have chosen this topic right in the beginning because nowadays you can see through the nowadays it is not necessary that when you will be listening, but right now on this day there are news that about there is a tussle between the government and the judiciary. Judiciary wants the holding of local election as soon as possible, and it has given date to the election commission to hold the local government election. But today newspapers are showing that the judiciary has agreed to extend the date of this because it was a gigantic and Herculean task for the tired election commission of Pakistan to conduct election in a very small, very short span of time. And this drama that was going to conclude in December 2013, now it will be concluded in January 2013 and 14, December 13 and January 14. It is, I am talking about according to the information that is available up to today. In the Balochistan, the elections are going to be conducted on 7th of December, but the new dates for the Punjab and the Sindh has been changed, and they have been the election has been shifted towards the January. It is a gigantic task. Why gigantic task? The election commission has to print 400 million ballot papers. It is not a child's play. It is a very, very tough time, and you know the system of the election commission, and I used to use the word the tired election commission. Never its performance have been above board, like many other institutions. This is also it is on decline. Challenges one, the printing of 400 million ballot papers in a short span of 25 days. Thanks to the guard, thanks to the judiciary that it agreed to the limitation of the Election Commission of Pakistan to print 400 million ballot paper. It is not physically possible for the Election Commission of Pakistan. Even it runs all its machineries 24 hours around and 7 days a week. It is not possible to print this number of ballot papers. So when the Election Commission was under fire by the apex judiciary, they decided to get print of these ballot paper from the private firms. So it could create a new discussion and new debate, because already our system is under, there are questions on the transparency and the fairness of the election. So if the matter goes into the hands of the private firms, it may create many of the problem. The other arrangement like the inks and the pads and whatsoever, this is also on the scene. Over 66, we are a unique nation. Over 66 years of independence, we tried all possible form of local government. We are proud of this. You can say that we are the nation who tried to adopt every kind of local body elections that is mostly available on the in other world, but unfortunately our problem was not solved. We will start from even before than the 1947, and then we will travel towards what is happening in now, and we will just concentrate on the latest, that was the Musharraf local body constitution. However, we focus recent decentralization reforms in Pakistan under General Musharraf. Why General Musharraf? He has left the country and he is out of the power of more than 6 years before, because this system in one way or the other, his local body's ordinance is being implemented in one way or the other. There are changes in this election, but we see that mostly the overall framework remain the same. there are not significant changes made by these political governments to improve this Musharraf's local bodies ordinance. We also discussed the mechanism of current elections. At the current election on the verge, and these are going to be convened in a few months, we will, as the information will keep on flowing, we will try to incorporate into my lectures, and we will keep on discussing in this that what is the current elections. In the previous there were Nazims and Naib Nazim. I think now there are chairmen and vice chairmen, again going back to I think the other local body ordinance. This time local government elections are conducted on party basis. This is the difference from the previous one. This time, these, up to the information right now, these are being conducted on the party basis. So the printing of the ballot paper becomes even more complicated, because still Election Commission has to allot the symbols of each party, although that they have allotted, but these have to be printed on the ballot paper. Whether successful experience or not, wait and see. We will see. I will leave it up to you that whether this local body elections was a success story, not in this situation that the Election Commission conducted these elections fair and without any doubt. But my purpose is to say that as we are talking about the public administration, I would like to see whether they solve the problem of the local people, because the local government authorities are constituted to solve the problem of the local people, because they are more and directly related to the problems of the local people. So we will see, and definitely without wait we can't say. We can just make some of the prediction at this stage that it is hoped that if the elections are fair and transparent, and the good and the faithful and the sincere representative at the local government are elected, then there are more chances that the situation of our poor community may change, and we may solve our problem. In this process, we highlight major aspects of the reforms. That was the 2000 reform, again concentrating on the Musharraf. We provide a detailed history of local government reforms in Pakistan. Here you can see local government. We are not talking about the provincial government. We are not talking about the federal government. We are starting from the beginning. Local government, and we will continue our provincial and the federal setup and so on. And federal government reform, local government reforms in Pakistan, we will start from 1947. We will see 3 and 4 major reforms that were incorporated into the Pakistani system. The purpose is to better understand the context. Why we are starting from 1947? The purpose of this history is to understand the context and potential causes behind the current decentralization. That why this decentralization was given, what were its consequences, why it could not achieve its objective, and we will concentrate on this in that way. Different angles, we will try to understand it. History of decentralization in Pakistan, some interesting facts. One of the interesting that always military leaders were keen to local setup. Why? My question is why. I think you are in a better position to give why. Because like money laundering, as the black money is whitened through money laundering, the military dictators have no roots or political roots into the system. So they try such kind of things to show the people that they believe in the democracy, and they are giving the authorities to the local governments. So the military rulers were keen about this. 3 significant reforms set up were from dictators. The more significant reforms in the context of local government came from the 3 military dictators. There are more than 3 military dictators in Pakistan. First was the Ayub Khan. General Ayub Khan, the first military dictator of Pakistan, who laid the foundation stone of the destabilization of the political system. I am not going to criticize him, but he was the first man to introduce the role of military into the political system. Since then, we are facing many problems, and this credit, even larger or shorter, it goes to it is on the credit of the General Ayub Khan, who took over the government in 1958, and he became the ruler of Pakistan. After then comes the era of General Muhammad Ziaul Haq. This is the most dark era of Pakistan history, but we are not taking it in other context. We see that he also introduced a local government ordinance, according to which the election were convened. The most important, that is our focus, that is the Musharraf. I think this is 1979, local government ordinance 1979. Musharraf ordinance, this is 2000. It is very important to listen about that the dictators use this. The political government could not do this. If you listen and go to the history, that the political government are not willing to hold the local body election. It is the judiciary who has forced these political governments to hold these elections. Otherwise, neither province was interested in holding such kind of election. So the causes of these local government elections are mostly on the more interested are the military dictator. Let's set from the pre-independence. We will see that for the local communities, which kind of system exists before pre-partition, or you can say the pre-independence. Pre-existing local government. Definitely there was some kind of the pre-existing local government. Pre-existing mean we are talking about before 1947, when the subcontinent was not divided. It was under the British rule, and it was before British rule. There was the huge empires of the Mughals that ultimately came to an end when the British took over the subcontinent. Before the advent of the British rule in India, there was no advanced tradition of local self-government in the modern sense. Before British, if you go to the history, there were the Mughals, and Mughals, although they were good administrators, but they could not launch a proper way of local government or local self-government system. There was a mechanism to address the local people, but the authorities were not with the local government, and there was not any modern system that was available on that era in other parts of the world. However, a rudimentary means basic local government system did exist in the rural areas. Although I said that although the powers were not transferred to the local government, definitely when the emperor, there was emperors, he was careful about his population, but how they used to do, there was centralized system rather than the decentralized system. At that time, it was this system was the centralized system was considered better, and the emperor was not willing to give his authorities to the local government. However, in one way or the other, the system do exist. We will see that which kind of system exists before the arrival of the British into the subcontinent. This was the system of village panchayats. I think this do exist in the kind of jirga in our tribal areas. So this system of panchayat in Punjab, it is also there, but now it is deteriorating. This institution, very strong institution this was, to decide the local problems, to decide the make local decision, although it has some of the fundamental drawbacks, as you see in the panchayat ne ke ji ye hukum de diya that when there was love marriage, to kill both the male and female. There were drawbacks for this, but at the same time its importance cannot be denied, because it has a significant role in solving the problem of the people at the local level over a long history of the subcontinent. Literally it was a council of 5. It means it was a panchayat, and most of the time its member consist of 5 numbers, which preferred, what was their preferred, which performed their what they perform, administrative, judicial, and sometime development function. So their functions were administrative, judicial, and sometime development. What were the administrative? If the government, the federal government, that the emperor used to implement some of the policy, these panchayat were used as an instrument to implement that policy. For example, most of the time the emperor was interested in getting the tax, that was the kharaj tax from the local people. So these people were used for this. The panchayats used to convince the farmers and the other local residents to contribute to the national exchequer, so that their benefits could be achieved in response to that. Judicial, definitely when the society is residing, there are conflicts of interest. It is since from the very beginning of the human history, over time the conflicts are taking different dimension, but they do still exist. The nature and scope have changed, but the severity and the numbers still does exist. So these local, or you can say the panchayat village, that was the council of almost 5 people. This was one of the, you can say, the informal kind of local government from pre-British era. Pre-independent, however, in terms of geographical coverage, ये मौजूद तो थी ये पंचायत, however in terms of geographical coverage and history, panchayats never existed over the whole or the subcontinent. Two things in respect of these panchayat, no doubt they do exist, but two things should be clear. It is not necessarily that the panchayat were functioning in all over the subcontinent. And the other is that over the long history of the subcontinent, in the eras can be spotted when there is no evidence that these panchayats were functioning in the proper way, or in a, you can say, the formal way. And not in all periods in history, although some system of village self-government more or less existed in the various ages of Indian history. Very interesting Indian history. If you go through this, the formal, we can say that there were the period when this was the missing, that the panchayat were missing, but the system of village self-government, कुछ ना कुछ लोगों ने खुद जो है वो अपना बनाया हुआ था to run the system, because there is always conflict of interest, and when there is conflict of interest, there are disputes that need to be resolved, and the governments, there was not the quick transportations and quick linkage between the emperor and the population. So the people on their own self has made some kind of self-governance bodies. And it is also that the emperor means any of his administrators have made such kind of self-government bodies in the Indian history. The pre-independence story continues. In terms of representation, the panchayat was only rarely representative of village as a whole. ये भी इसमें जो है वो एक प्रॉब्लम है. the panchayat was only rarely this was not the only entity that was the representative of the whole village. There could be another, you can say, the bodies that could represent the village. But the panchayat was the most dominated, still dominating in shape of jirga, in shape of tribal areas, and in shape of panchayat in the Punjab areas. It is all often representing the founding families, upper castes, and large farmers. Who were the bosses of the village? They are the founding families, upper castes, upper caste, and large farmers. Three category for this. Founding families who used to found this, who used to make suggest of this, definitely these families were the powerful families. Upper caste, definitely there was the caste system, and there was the majority of the in subcontinent of the Hindus, and you know about the many of the classification of the Hindu religion like Brahman, Kshatriya, Brahmans, Shudras, and whatsoever. These were the Brahman, Shudra, and the others for this. These are the caste and large farmers. If this is large farmer means the rich farmers. If there was rich farmers, the people used together to obey his orders to solve their problem. ये इसी तरह की सिचुएशन है जिस तरह आजकल के जो है वो चौधरी हैं. The same situation exists in our society. In the shape, the scope, and the nature has changed. Otherwise, there is not a very small difference in that or that. आज भी चौधरी जो है वो बैठे हुए हैं डेरेस पर, जिनके जो है वो लोग जो है वो दम जो है वो भरते हैं. In Punjab, in tribal areas, in Sindh, and particularly in the Balochistan, there are the tribes of Bugtis and the Bazanjos and many other tribes. They have their own jurisdiction in their areas, and the people have to obey them. Although the government's rate is there, but it is only so-called government rate, and the system still reeling at the panchayat system. It is also worth emphasizing that panchayats were not the only form of village government in pre-British India. As I said here, that the panchayats were not only the representative of the whole system. There were other upper caste peoples, there were the large farmers, they were also the representative of the village. So it is not justified to say that at that time that the panchayat were the only system of the village government, village self-government, or what you can say the local government. It is up to you which word you use for this. So what were the other things, what were the other institutions rather than the panchayat that were functioning in the pre-independence in the subcontinent that is now included India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh? The system of village headman is one example of other forms of rural government. The one is एक headman होता था. Can I say it to Nambardar? To my guess, I say that the Nambardar, the designation of this headman was, you can say, the Nambardar. If it was appointed on the from the government side, it was Nambardar, and if the people themselves used to follow or obey, it could be called the village headman. Is one example for other forms of rural government. So what was the duties of this Nambardar? Supposing that it was appointed, not supposing it was appointed, it was nominated by the government. What was his duties? His duties was to collect the taxes and convey the message of the government to the population, and he was a bridge between the government and the people. Although under the reign of the Mughals and the time of the British government, the headman was more a representative of the central government rather than village self-government. Now, this statement is an endorsement to my previous discussion that headman was appointed by the government. So he used to ensure the interest of the central government. So simply we can say that in the Mughals regime and then the British government and the Mughals, the numbers were the representative of the central government. They were bridge between this and that. When any of the higher level administrators used to visit any of the village, it was the duty of the Nambardar to arrange all the modalities of that, how he will travel and how the people should behave, that this one. This is happening like now in Pakistan, that when there is any minister visiting, many people are running here and there, patwaris are running here and there and whatsoever, tahsildars can't go, and what this situation is going on. So it means the Nambardar at that times, they were the more on the side of the central government rather than on the side of the village, or you can say the self-government. Local government under the British. Now the concept of local government started under the British government in the areas that presently comprise Pakistan. Now definitely we will be talking about only the West Pakistan. Local governments were introduced by the British in these areas. So no doubt that the British looted this subcontinent, but they introduced some of the reforms that were more critical for this area. For example, their canal systems, their administrative system, these are still highly appreciated by many of the historians. Critics are there, the critics should be there, but ultimately they were founders of many of the things into the subcontinent. Local government were introduced by the British. So the first fundamental problem is solved, that who introduced the formal local government rather than the panchayat and the headman, who officially introduced the local government in, and these were the British. Not by building on the village panchayats, but instead from scratch. They did not just give the status of panchayat to the local the status of local bodies, but they started from the scratch following the annexation. Annexation means takeover. Takeover of the Sindh in 1843 and the Punjab in 1849, when the British took over the Sindh in 1843, and after 6 years they were in a position to conquer the Punjab. So they introduced the local government. What were these? Let's see. After the War of Independence or Indian Mutiny in 1857, everyone knows that this is 1857 has a significant role in the history of this subcontinent, when this population, particularly the Muslim, staged their agitations and their angriness against the British, and there was the slogan that the British should leave this subcontinent, and there was this direct confrontation between the local people and the British. The governance of India transferred from the hands of the East India Company to the Crown. When the British ensured their writ in the subcontinent, in majority of the subcontinent, the system was changed. Before this, it was under the East India Company, British East India Company, but now they given it to the status, and the subcontinents went under the direct rule of the Crown, and it was all the matters were transferred to the Crowns rather than the East India Company. So it means now formally the British India went directly under the control of the British. Attempts were made to co-opt the native elite by establishing representative local governments. The British were very wise. they knew that unless and until they have their roots into the local people, they can't survive over a longer period of time, because they were the aliens to the subcontinents, and there was a very few number of British who were working in the subcontinents, and they were making slave a large population of this subcontinent, millions of population of the subcontinents. So it was their strategy, their trickiness, that they ruled this subcontinent almost 100 years. What they thought, when they took over, when they ensured the rate, they tried to co-opt the native elite. All the rich people that now that were the numbers are the people who have the you can say the properties, the land properties over the year. These were the special people of the British, or you can see these were the mostly exceptions are always there. These were the touts of the British, or you can say these were the public administrative tools of the British. They used to interact with the elite people, because they know that the elite people have more power to ensure their interest. The ultimate objective of the British was to ensure their own interest, and for that purpose they have to intervene, they have to bring some reforms, and they used, the first one was that they co-opted and the native elite by establishing a representative local government. They introduced the local government, and the native elite were the heads of this. These local governments were formed in a top-down manner in urban and rural areas. Top-down, at higher level more powers, lower level less and less. This is the top-down manner in urban as well as the rural. There were more people, you can say more public administrative tools in this system. Members were, now I am linking the discussion to the previous one. Members were not locally elected but nominated by the British bureaucracy. These British were very wise. They never allowed the local people to choose their representative as it is being happen nowadays in the election. After few months you will see that you will be choosing your local people to solve to assume office of the local government and to solve their problem. But in the British, what was this? They never allowed the local people to elect their representative, but they nominated by the British bureaucracy, and it is the, you can say, the higher bureaucracy. On the higher post, there were always the British. So they never tried to give more autonomy to the local governments. So they nominated even at the village level. Look at their curiosity and their strategy to rule this British India, that even they were so careful about their empire that they were nominating the people. In their country there was the democracy, but in British India they were nominating the people even at the smallest local government or the village. However, despite legislation for setting up district committees in almost every province, however, despite legislation, there was now agitation or the demands from the local that there should be district committees almost for this. However, despite this all situation, legislation for setting up district committees in almost every province, district level पर उनका जो है वो system जो है वो मौजूद था. The committees were nothing more than a convenience to the district magistrate. जो district level पर जो है वो committee थी, they were nothing but they were only a convenient way of administration for the district magistrate. So it means that district magistrate DM was given the maximum power to ensure the writ of the government. What were the duties of these local government, the nominated heads by the nominated rather than head, I should use elite, to supply him with information or to carry out miscellaneous duties. Look at here, these district governments, legislation for setting up of district committees. District committees were there. What was the roles of the district committee? The first role comes here, to supply him with information or to carry out miscellaneous duties. ये जो magistrate साहब थे, उनको information पहुंचाना, it was the duty of these district level bodies or the district committees. On the basis of these committees, they were very informative. The magistrate were very informative, and they highly depend on the information, and because these people were loyal to the British, and they tried to give bring more and more information to the magistrate to be included into the good books of the British. And there were other miscellaneous duties. For example, if there is a decision made by the magistrate to carry out or to convey it to the population, village population, it was the duty of the district bodies. Village life was hardly touched by the new district committees. Look at here, district committees were formed, but the village life was not touched by these. Although they used to be a bridge between the local people and the magistrate, but they have less interest into the grassroots level. So that's why village life was hardly touched by the new district committees. It means the new district committees, that was the formation, the first introduction of the British style of governance into the British India. It was not useful for the village level people, and it doesn't touch the new district committees. They were formed by the district magistrate. District magistrate ही उसको बनाता था from among his mulakatis and other respectable citizens. This word is very interesting. Respectable, I would like to replace it by the tout, because the British has a very, very informative system for them, and when the magistrate used to constitute a district committee, how he used to constitute this, वो कहाँ से member choose करता? मुलाकातीस. मुलाकातीस कौन होते हैं आपको पता ही है, जो खुशामद बरामद जो है वो करने वाले होते हैं. जो ज़्यादा खुशामद बरामद करता था, he was given a even better, you can say, the office. And the respectable can be taken in two ways, the tout and other, the elite, or you can say the high caste people. Because they were effective, the representative being chosen by the district magistrate, these were those people that were most effective in obeying, in fulfilling the commands of, in implementing the commands of the district magistrate. And district magistrate was a true representative of the British. Democratic process at the provincial level. That was a bit history of the process of the local government. The outbreak of World War I, again going into the 90s, before 1920s, and agitation by the national parties changed the scenario. When there was the First World War broke out, the people were from subcontinents were included into the British Army, that the Indian Army at that time, and they fought for the crown, to save the crown. But after that, when the British could not fulfill the promise to this local community, then there were agitation against the people, and the national parties were making these. What were the demands? Demand rose for greater representation of provincial and central government. Now, when the British could not fulfill the promise with the local government that they made in the First World War, now there was agitation. Definitely the British people fought courageously, and there was many casualties when of the soldiers when they were fighting for the crown of British crown. So what the demand rose after this World demand rose that the local people should be given more priority, more representation into the provincial and the central government. Now two things are being ignored. They never talked about the district governments, district, or the other is the local government. Now the influence local government. Now the influence changed, and influence was on the representation of the provincial as well as the central committees, central government. Why this was that these local people have now guessed that they can only get their demands fulfilled by the British if they have some power, and definitely the power was lies within the central government and the provincial government. So they tried to represent themselves through provincial and the central government. It shifted focus from local governments and prompted the British government to make political concessions to Indian political parties. British were now a bit relaxed, not lenient, not relaxed, but they were lenient because the demands were very high. So what they said, they were just keen to give political concession to Indian political parties. The parties working at this in India, when they started agitation about the British, they were willing to give some autonomy to some representation to these governments. They granted more autonomy at the provincial level. सूबों को ज़्यादा उन्होंने खुद मुख्तार बना दिया. They gave more autonomy. The powers were transferred to the provinces. That was one of the demand. This change is important in understanding the evolution of the local government. Why? Now there was the huge concentration of the power at the central level, but after the agitation and the breakout of the First World War, then the focus was shifted, the more representation into the central and the provincial assembly. The people were demanding that they should be given this, and the British were lenient. This was interesting, that now they thought that if they will resist, that it will make a problem for those people. This, and now the total focus was shifted from local district level to provincial and they gave more autonomy to the provincial. It sharpened the contrast between these nascent representative governments at the central province and existing local government. अब ये जो है वो इसमें अंडरस्टैंडिंग में जो है वो चेंज क्यों आई? Because it sharpened the contrast between, because now there were four governments, central government, provincial government, the district committees and the local committees, that were the village headmen or whatsoever. Now there was a mechanism of this system, because the power was transferred towards the provinces, and the provinces were now coordinating the districts and further. So the power was given one step lower to the local people. As the latter became less relevant as means of representation. Later, what was the later? The district and the local. If you see here, the local government, they were ignored at this time because the total focus was on the province and the central. The public debate shifted to the more regional and central arena of the nationalist movement. After the national movement, now the focus was shifted. Now British were going slowly and steadily on the back foot, and these parties were emerging as more powerful parties, and they were in a position to convince and threat the British to solve their to fulfill their demand, to accept many of their demands. And British was very intelligent. They used to accept some of the demands and then rejecting many of the other. It was enough for the local people. If at least they get out of this, they were believing that something is better than nothing. This shift in political emphasis was a major factor behind the dormancy local governments in the areas that were to constitute Pakistan. इस सब सिनेरियो चेंज होने की वजह से लोकल गवर्नमेंट का जो है वो फड्डा वो बैकग्राउंड में चला गया. ए न्यू सिनेरियो इमर्ज एंड द फोकस वाज ऑन द प्रोविंशियल एंड द central government rather than on the local governments. The first significant constitutional amendment was Government of India Act 1991, very famous act. You have gone through this, your Pak studies, you have gone through it, Indian history, British India history, and you have gone through also through many general knowledge books. So the first formal constitutional, or you can say the significant constitutional accommodation, was the Government of India Act 1990. And the British India was in the control of the Crown after the 1857. But look at this, how many 43 and 19, and these are 62 years after this. Now there was a first formal or you can say the significant accommodation in the constitution, and it was called the Government of India Act 1991. What was this act? That introduced a system of diarchy under which Indian ministers responsible to the provincial legislative assemblies were made in charge of some of minor department. Now some of the autonomy was given to the Indian minister. Look at here, if you see, Indian minister who were responsible to the provincial legislative assembly, they were also given in charge of some of minor departments. Minor departments, उन्हें दाखिला का इंचार्ज नहीं दे दिया गया था, उन्हें फॉरेन ट्रेड वगैरह का जो महकमे थे, they were not allotted. They were given like the post and such kind of, that were not too important. If I am not sure that at that time even the post was the most important, but definitely one thing is clear, that the British were not ready to give autonomy to the local people in the areas where that have much importance for this or that reason. So the 1919 Act, that is the more important in the British history. There are further some of the characteristic of this act. This act granted limited space to Indian politicians, although as I said that the British were willing to give autonomy to some of the ministers for this. So this act, although it was a significant improvement at this stage, because it was taken as a success of the Indian people, that they are in a position to get some of the space in the politics, but essentially retained the control of the central imperial bureaucracy. कुछ न कुछ तो province को मिल गया, but the power of the central democracy was still dominating at this time. The parties was demanding the provincial autonomy, more provincial autonomies, the local governments, and the at village level, mostly the provincial level. Although they were granting and their demands were fulfilled up to some level, but still there was, the center was more powerful. Why it was powerful? No need to explain. The cause is clear, that the British were never willing to distribute their powers to the other people. So still the bureaucracy in the center was extremely powerful. In fact, bureaucratic power at the provincial level was further entrenched. At this level, these were further entrenched by this 1919 law. The space available to Indian elected minister was further curtailed. What this means, under some rules and regulation, the bureaucratic power of the provincial people was further curtailed. The space available to Indian elected minister was further curtailed by limited assignment of the expenditure function and fiscal resource. जी British कभी भी जो है वो कोई भी हो, we are not just I am taking just the example of the British because they ruled us over 100 years. But everyone, if we were the ruler, we will be just going this, we will be keeping more power with us. So what is the Indian ministers' power were further handcuffed, further curtailed by the limiting assignment. Assignment क्या थी? Expenditure function. Their role was further delimited, further restricted in the expenditure problem and the fiscal resources. Definitely they have to use some of the fiscal resources, but their utilization was further curtailed by this the central power. So we will continue this discussion. I think this is a time to give you a summary. Before going to the summary, I would like to give you some of the more relevant references so that you could understand this. If you go to the book Nizami 1994, Local Bodies, as our topic is the local bodies, and this is the book. Nauman 1988, Pakistan Political and Economic History since 1947. And the Rizvi, the book is in 1970, Changing Patterns of Local Government in Pakistan, and it is Pakistan Historical Society. So what is the summary of today's lecture? Today we just shifted our discussion into the new paradigm, or you can see the more relevant paradigm. What is this paradigm? That we are talking about the public administration in Pakistan. The first we have chosen is the local government. We could have started from the center to the provincial to the district and the local bodies. But what is the reason behind choosing this one? The reason is that two reasons. One is that the British started from the local system, and the local system was there in one way or the other. But the most critical and the important is that now under the Pakistan is going through the fever of the local bodies election, and it is assumed and it is convinced that the only local people know the problem of the local community in a better way, and they are in a position to solve this problem. So the local government are always encouraged. So we started from the pre-independence, and you can see the Mughals and the British. We discussed the Mughals and the British. When we went through the history, we came to know that in one situation or the other, at least there was the system of local people. Before the independence of 1947, there were the local heads, the panchayats, the local councils and the district committees. Now there is another discussion that how these were powerful in implementing the simple sentences that more powerfully explained that these were the representative of the center, that was the British, not they were the true representative of the local people, that was the villagers. How they used to select these people? Definitely the respectable people are respectable, mean from high caste, and the other you can say the rich people are the mulakatis, that otherwise you can say the touts. The first formal constitutional accommodation was 1919, in which the provinces were given their status. Some of the powers were given to the ministers, and at the same time some of the powers were restricted. We will continue our discussion about the formation of the local governments. We have to study three regimes, the local bodies of the Ayub Khan, Ziaul Haq and the Musharraf. We will discuss these three ordinances, or you can say the reforms, in a more detailed way. So thank you very much. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.